Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Like I promised last time, today I will talk about the Chinese Communist Party's recent crackdown on English study out of school training as well as foreign training materials and courses. I will tell the true stories of Alibaba's founder Jack Ma, a Chinese writer, as well as my story, to illustrate the possible reason why the CCP would suddenly crack down on this. The stories are exclusive that you won't hear from anywhere else. So make sure you stick around till the end. Early this month, on August the 3rd, the Education Committee in Shanghai City issued an official notice which bans English examinations in elementary schools. In the meantime, elementary school and high school students must study Xi Jinping Thought. In addition to the cancellation of elementary school English exams, the international renowned English learning app Duolingo was suddenly taken down from the Chinese mobile app platforms. At the same time, China's largest out-of-school training institutions, such as the New Oriental and Tomorrow Advancing Life, are all facing restriction or closure under the CCP's new policy. New Oriental is a very big provider to provide private education services, mainly in English in China. It is traded both at the New York Stock Exchange and Hong Kong stock market. Let's see how the New Oriental's share price in the New York Stock Exchange has been affected. So this is the price in 1 month. Look at the sharp fall in late July. That was when the CCP started to crack down on out-of-school training. So this is the picture in 1 year. You can see that in February this year, its price was as high as $400. Now it is only 30 plus. In only 6 months, its price dropped from 400 to 30 plus. Let's show another picture, yes. And this is the share price in Hong Kong during 1 year. You can see that the highest price also appeared in February this year, when its price hit 153 Hong Kong dollars. Now it is only about 14 Hong Kong dollars. So from 153 to only 14 US dollars. So you can say that this is the risk of doing business in China or buying Chinese stocks. The risk doesn't come from the poor performance of the listed company themselves, but from the policy changes of the CCP. And then, from September this year, when the new school term starts, all students in China will find that they have to study Xi Jinping Thought. The mandatory textbook is called Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics in the New Era. All students in grade 3, 5, 8, and 10 will have to study it on a weekly basis. Right now, a training course is run at Nankai University to train teachers how to teach this new course, so that both the teachers and students can have a deep understanding of the significance of Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics in the new era, and can know how to participate in promoting Xi Jinping's idea of building a community with a shared future for mankind, etc. In the meantime, a ban on using foreign teaching materials will be imposed in Chinese schools. The ban was announced by the CCP's Ministry of Education on July 24th. The document stipulates that training institutions are strictly prohibited from providing educational programs devised overseas, nor can they employ foreign teachers. Out-of-school training courses and advertisements should be strictly controlled. They are not to be seen on mainstream media, new media platforms, internet, public places, and residential areas, etc. Also, the CCP has terminated 286 of its Sino-foreign college programs in which Chinese students could study overseas to obtain a diploma. The announcement was made on August 15, 2 weeks before the new school year starts on September the 1st. These banned programs allowed Chinese high school and university graduates a chance to study at foreign university for a defined period of time, usually up to 2 years. From the published list, 30 universities that were involved in 41 programs were from the US, such as the master's degree in electronic and computer engineering between Georgia Institute of Technology and Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and the master's degree in telecommunications management between Seoul Institute of Technology and Beijing Institute of Technology. Now, let's watch a short video that shows the CCP police breaking into an out-of-school class as if these people were committing some sort of crime. So this video was shot in Anhui province in China. The police, taking out the teacher. I can't exactly understand what they are saying because they are talking in some kind of dialect. Obviously, the police was scolding the teacher. He is asking him to show his ID card, and the teacher is trying to pull it out from his cell phone. I don't quite understand what the police officer is saying. It's like he's asking the teacher to provide his information. So, as a matter of fact, the CCP police now are treating the out-of-school training industry as illegal, something similar to a whorehouse or underworld gangs. The other day, I saw someone posting a photo of a Chinese man lying in bed with a Western woman. And the photo caption says, in the past, if they got caught, the man would say, "I'm learning English from her." But now, if a man is caught learning English from a female Westerner, it's better off for him to say that they are having sex. Quite ironic, right? But this is the reality in China now. Not only schools, even entertainment venues are regulated. On July 26, the CCP's Ministry of Culture and Tourism issued a notice saying that the CCP will establish a blacklist of karaoke songs to ban those containing illegal content and karaoke venues across the country starting from October the 1st. Illegal content includes songs that endanger national unity under the CCP's rule, sovereignty, or territory integrity, violate the CCP's religious policies by propagating what the CCP considers cults or superstitions, or which encourage illegal activities such as gambling and drugs, etc. Content providers to such karaoke venues will be responsible for auditing the songs, etc. China now has nearly 50,000 entertainment outlets with a basic music library of over 100,000 songs. So how hard will it be for the venue operators to identify illegal tracks? The CCP said that it encouraged content providers to supply what the party would consider healthy and uplifting music to these venues. But what is healthy and uplifting music? According to the CCP standard, maybe all Christmas-related songs are not healthy because they sing about Jesus, which can easily be put under the superstition category, as the CCP doesn't believe in God. Now, let's talk about why the CCP is suddenly banning English exams, foreign educational programs, and unhealthy songs, etc. First of all, let's watch a short speech by a CCP general called Xu Yan. He's also a professor of the Defense University of the People's Liberation Army. He made this speech at the annual meeting of National Famous Teachers Workshop Union in Chengdu City in China back in 2018. Nearly 2,000 educators and students attended the conference. Please make sure you read the English titles added by me.
新疆、西藏就是中国的软肋。另外，香港还要闹港独的雨伞革命啊，就是国际反华势力想把香港变成反共桥头堡。现在一些年轻人闹事儿，关键他其实讲起来他是家长坏，加上这个教育问题。1997年接触香港的时候，我那时候跟驻港部队领导也一起参加研究香港的社情。香港的社会基础，咱们实事求是讲，是中国最坏的地方，比台湾都坏。这毛主席当然讲中国社会和阶级分析，你分析一个地方情况，你首先分析它社会的社会状况。台湾真正反共的人并不多，当地居民80%离共产党无所谓，去的20%很多抓上钉去的。香港可不一样，香港来讲，1997年咱们接管说，当时分析成分居民成分3个1/3，1/3是香港原住民和他们后代受港英教育，他有点傲气，但是来讲对你大陆还没什么怨恨。1/3是最坏的。1949年、1950年被共产党清算斗争扫地出门跑去的，对你刻骨仇恨很多人。再有1/3，3年困难挨饿，那边偷渡，对你印象好得了。说香港回归之后就是一个大失误，现在也总结，一切都不变，你不去殖民化怎么行啊？你香港回归这20多年，教材还是用港英英国属土公民教材，而且他原来想改教材，家长不让改，说学生坏，年轻人坏是家长坏，不让改教材。现在这20多年还是英国属土公民教材，说现在这些年轻学生闹事儿，他教育糟糕。是教育出了问题了，我觉得现在咱们就是采取措施了。过去我们讲一个大教训，过分强调两制，没强调一国呀。去年咱们新特首林郑月娥上来之后，我觉得2件事干得好。第一件事，因为战中闹事的判刑；第二个来讲，从今年开始教材的改，你得用中国公民的教材，你怎么能用英国属土公民教材？但是把这些人教育过来，在座是搞教育都清楚，把这些人教育过来可不是1年2年能办到的事儿，这个教育还是个长期的问题。
Now, what do you think? I think you will understand how the CCP looks at the matter of textbooks just after you watch this CCP General Speech. Next, let me present you 3 real stories from 3 different people, including that of mine, to illustrate why the CCP would suddenly hate English so much. So let's play video 3. So this is a speech by Alibaba Jack Ma. So he said, people like me without English, all the education I have received would be the school telling you what is correct, mom and dad telling you what is correct. But after learning English, I think what they say may not be right. We must use our own brains to think about some problems. I remember that in 1985, I went to Australia for the first time during my summer vacation. Before I went to Australia, I thought that China was the richest country in the world because we were taught from childhood that we should liberate all mankind. But when we arrived in Australia, we found that people there needed to liberate us first. Well, from this video, we can know that Jack Ma thinks that after learning English, he could think independently. Now let's play another clip to see how, because he spoke English, his fate was changed too. So he said, the first time I went abroad was in 1985. When I was very young, I taught myself English beside the West Lake. I met a pair of Australian friends who invited me to spend a summer vacation in Australia. I stayed in the basement of Beijing for 10 nights, and I lined up every day at the entrance of the embassy to get a visa, but I was rejected every time. Then I ran out of money. I finally thought I saw a foreigner over there, so I went to him and said, I want to talk to you seriously. Then he said, what do you want to talk about? Then I said, I just want a visa. I said that today is the 10th day. I have no more money. I have to go back, but at least I have to know, why did you reject me? I said I didn't have any money, I didn't have any relatives, I didn't have any friends, I just want to know. He said, okay, can you stay for 10 days? I said no. He said, okay, can you stay for 30 more minutes? So he stamped my visa and came out. So I'm very grateful to that person, and then I went to Australia. Well, at that time, Jack Ma was only 21 years old. When he went to Australia finally, he had only $100 with him, which was borrowed from his relatives, and that was all he had. He stayed in Australia for 29 days, and that trip, according to himself, changed his worldview and his entire life. Many years later, in 2017, Jack Ma went back to Australia and gave 26 million Australian dollars or 20 million US dollars to Newcastle University to set up a scholarship program to express his gratitude. That was the largest ever donation to the university. So that's the legacy of Jack Ma, who, by the way, is under suppression by the CCP now. But the above two videos show how important English was for him. If he didn't know English, his thoughts would have still been controlled or limited by what his schools and his parents told him. Without English, he wouldn't have been able to get his visa to Australia in the first place. So his life's trajectory has completely changed because he knew English. Now, let me share a true story of another Chinese man who had a different story because he doesn't have good enough English. So this person is Jinping Thought. He's a Chinese scholar and a writer. We shared his story briefly a while ago when we talked about the incident of the CCP virus statue in California being burned down. He was on night watch before the statue was burned down and then encountered two traffic accidents on the highway that almost killed him. Anyway, in early 1990s, Zeng was sentenced to 13 years after the Tiananmen massacre in 1989 for supporting the student movement. After he was finally released, he continued to criticize the CCP on Chinese social media platforms. As a result, the CCP kept on monitoring and harassing him. At one stage, he had to hide at a friend's home in the remote countryside. And you know what? The CCP police killed his friend's dog to signal to him as well as to his friend, "Don't hide from us, we know where you are. Don't offer him help, otherwise there will be trouble." Finally, he couldn't endure that kind of life anymore. He thought enough is enough and managed to come to the US in 2016 via Hong Kong with a tourist visa. Because his English is limited, he was introduced to a Chinese-speaking lawyer in Flushing in New York. If you've ever been to Flushing, let's show picture 14. Yeah, you must have felt that you had arrived in China. That was how I felt when I went to Flushing for the first time in 2004. Actually, the CCP has a very strong presence in that area. The CCP's control and infiltration there is strong and deep. Anyway, this Chinese-speaking lawyer in Flushing told Dong that there was no such a thing as seeking asylum in the US, and it was impossible for him to stay. Dong was very disappointed. He then went to Canada. Again, he was introduced to a Chinese-speaking lawyer there who told him exactly the same thing. What could he do? He had to leave and went back to China. He was so desperate that he went directly to the police station instead of his home. He said to the police, "Okay, I'm here again, I'm back. Arrest me immediately. I will have no worries in prison. I'm tired of this running and hiding game. Put me in jail." The police officers were totally astonished by this and didn't put him in jail. Perhaps that was not their plan anyway. When Dong walked out of the police station, he suddenly started to tremble, as only by this time did he realize what he had done. His impulsiveness could have really landed him in jail. It took him another 2 years to be able to escape again. The good news is because he had made contact with some US officials before the Tiananmen movement. This time he gained his refugee status very quickly, within only 1 month. And then 1 year later, in 2019, he got his green card. So when I heard Dong's story about being deceived by those 2 Chinese-speaking lawyers in the US and Canada, I thought to myself how and when I came to know the concept of political asylum. I found I couldn't remember at all. It seemed that I just knew. But surely I couldn't have learned it from my Chinese teachers in school, right? Otherwise, Mr. Dong should have known it as well. I could only remember that I made up my mind that I would flee China and seek asylum in the West when I was still being tortured in Beijing female labor camp in 2000. I was imprisoned there for practicing Falun Gong, a spiritual practice that has been severely persecuted by the CCP since 1999. Although I couldn't figure out how and when I learned the idea of asylum seeking, I was very much sure that I got it from some English literature or materials I had read before I was sent to the labor camp. You know, during China's Cultural Revolution in the 1960s and the 1970s, nobody studied English in school. China isolated itself from the world. Students didn't need to sit for English exams either. After the CCP's so-called reform and opening to the outside world policy in late 1970s, English was gradually taken into the university entrance exam system. Why do I say gradually? When other subjects, such as math, accounted for 100 points, English only accounted for 30 points, then 50 points, 70% points until it reached 100 points as other subjects. And then when Chinese students were allowed to study in overseas countries, many students started to learn English very hard. I myself started to study English when I was a grade 4 student in primary school. At that time, primary school didn't teach English. I was learning it from the father of one of my mother's students. My mother was a school teacher then. This father wanted to teach his son English at home. So my mother said, "Can I have my daughter join in with your son as well?" He said yes. So his son, the daughter of his neighbor, as well as myself, the 3 of us started having English classes at night at his home. At that time, ordinary students started learning English in high school, that's grade 7. So I started about 2 years earlier with a private teacher. When I entered university, I read almost all the English novels I could borrow from the library. So I really didn't know when and how I got the concept of asylum seeking. I could only guess it was from the English materials I read. Anyway, although I decided to escape China to seek asylum in the West, how could I? Who could help me? At that stage, my English ability became a game changer. From what I gathered through my readings of English literature, I felt that I could trust and seek help from Westerners. So after I was released from the camp while still in hiding, I managed to come to know an Australian couple who went to China to teach English, as well as an American professor from the University of Arizona who was leading a group of students to do some sort of exchange program in China. They were basically all strangers to me, but I thought I could trust them. So I told them my story, how I was writing a book to expose what I experienced and saw in the labor camp, how the police were still after me, how desperately I needed to escape as soon as possible. They both lent helping hands. The Australian couple gave me an invitation that enabled me to gain a 3-month business visa to Australia. The American professor even managed to get me a position in her university as a Chinese language teacher for 1 year, and during the school holiday, she told me that she had to knock down on the doors of all her colleagues from different departments to get this done, as everyone was on vacation. I was deeply moved when I learned that. I ended up in Australia only because the US invitation was 1 day later. I couldn't afford to stay even 1 day longer in China. Anyway, that's how my English speaking ability has changed my life and fate. And not only my fate, but my profession too. I was able to publish my memoir in English. I was able to gain a green card from the US under the EB1 category, which means that the US government recognizes that I have outstanding talent with extraordinary abilities. I'm able to run this channel and talk to you now to tell you the inconvenient truth about the CCP and China. All this happened because I speak English. So I hope the 3 stories about Jack Ma, Guo Pingzhong, and myself can help you understand why the CCP is now thinking about banning English exams. If you know too much English, it's harder to control your thoughts as well as what kind of information you can get. For example, I dared to trust 3 Westerners who I barely knew while I was still in China. But for Guo Pingzhong, when he was fooled by Chinese-speaking lawyers, even though he was already in the US and Canada, only because he didn't speak good enough English. So at the end of the day, it is still about the competition between the CCP and the free world. The CCP wants to promote its own model to the whole world and replace the current world order with its so-called a community with a shared future. You can translate it as the CCP wants to liberate the entire world, as they initially announced. It is good enough for some Chinese people to learn some advanced technologies with their English language ability, but when it came to other values associated with English, the CCP doesn't like it. I guess that's why the CCP is starting to limit English study now in Chinese schools. Or we can put it in this way: the CCP could be preparing to shut its door again, to reverse its course back to the days when it was isolated from the world. Many things happening in China recently gave us this indication. So it is high time for decision makers, investors, and businesses to take notice of the latest developments in China. The days when everyone could happily make money together in China might have gone forever. Okay, that's all I have to say today. Now let's check our questions and comments. Seems there's a question from Jung Ganti. Hi, you've been doing an outstanding job. Recently, I read Professor Xu Zhangrun's essay, 8 Hopes, 8 Fears. Question, is there any other Chinese professor critical of the regime that you could recommend reading? I'm not understand, do you mean in Chinese language or in English? There are a lot. I think recently there is another Chinese, former Chinese professor from the party school. Her name is Chai Xia. We talked about her before. And if you, I think there are a lot of China reports on the Epoch Times. If you could follow that, you may have some following there. So that's this question. Let's see. Seems we don't have any other more questions. So Al Cole said, I look forward to your shows. Thank you. And Shadow Band said, hi Jennifer, you got some credit for some of your reporting on another channel. About a day ago, the channel is called The Update. They mentioned your name in their report. Oh, thank you so much for telling me that. I didn't know this. So seems we don't have any more questions, and we've been talking for about 32 minutes now. Or maybe let's ramp up here today. Thank you so much for watching. Let's start again on next Monday. Thank you. Bye-bye.